I'd hate to have to live my life by some boring old rulebook like you do. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Paradise Towers, written by Stephen Watts and is directed by Nicholas Mallet. As you can see, I don't have the Too Entertained normal edition. This is the special Doctor Who magazine. I can't remember what they call these ones. These magazine ones that I got with the 2005 logo. Actually, that one's from 2007 because it's much more shinier logo. But there you go. This is the second story in TV point of view to feature the Seventh Doctor, played by Sylvester McCoy. Now, this one was actually the first script that was approved by script editor Andrew Cartnell, who had a very much background with British comic books. I believe he worked on 2000 AD, but I'm not quite sure. Someone could easily correct me if I'm wrong on that. And this is the first story he signed off on. As the first story, Time and the Rani, was actually John Nathan-Turner's script that he approved just in case he was staying on for another series. So again, it's one of those things where a lot of production problems was happening behind the scenes. This story is not well loved by the fan base. Consider it a very cheesy, tacky, childish, just like loads of bad connotations with this story. And controversial here, hot take here, I actually kind of like it. I mean, sure, it's got its problems. It's got a lot of problems. But you can't look at me straight in the face and tell me you've seen a story like this. It's such a unique piece. It's just something about it is just overwhelmingly 80s, from the costumes, from the way the characters speak, from the plot points that we get, the production values on it, which you can really feel that the budget is stringing along, but they're doing the absolute best to try and get out the best looking set that they can. Whether that works or not, I'm not too particularly sure. And yeah, it's just a very strange, bizarre story. The only way I can really describe it, which kind of really fits with this, is Doctor Who meets an Andrew Lloyd Webber production, but without the music. Like Doctor Who meets Cats. The play Cats, not the movie Cats. God's sakes, please never have a Doctor Who meets Cats, the movie. That would just be horrible. But yeah, it's got that tacky, child-friendly... it seems like something that would appear on, like, Saturday morning for, like, the kids. And when I mean kids, I mean really young kids, like 4 or 5 kind of thing. And I can understand if a lot of people hate this. Like I said, there's a lot of struggle behind the scenes, and there's a lot of struggles in front of the screen, if we're going to be honest. But it's such a unique piece of media, and unlike Time and the Rani, where it doesn't really have anything to say in that story, this story does actually have a lot to say about, as I've stated in Time and the Rani, Andrew Cartnell, basically every script that he approved has some way, shape or form, is a anti-Margaret Thatcher theme in it. And like this one has no exceptions. So basically what happens is that the Doctor promises to take Mel to Paradise Towers, these massive buildings, and they have apparently they're very well known for their swimming pools. And so the Doctor takes her there. However, as soon as they get there, they discover that the place isn't as perfect as the brochure entails. They quickly get attacked by these kind of gang, these young girls who call themselves the Red Kangs. We later learn that there are blue Kangs and the yellow Kangs, which have been wiped out. And they have this really weird way of speaking. Like instead of death, they say not live. Instead of cool, they say ice hot. Instead of hello, they say how are we? Or something like that. And they've got like these really like 80s hairdos, it's like thick and all that. And their costumes are just over the top. And this is one of those make and break moments for a lot of people. There's much more make and break, especially if you can see in the cover. But this is one of the things that people don't like about this story, the Kangs. Now, I kind of understand people's criticisms with the rest of the story, but I actually kind of like the Kangs and their society and the way they kind of lead the Doctor and Mel into the story. Yeah, sure, it does mean that they kind of don't have any singular characters. The character is the Kang civilization, their gangs, and that it's the way they speak, the way they talk about like the past or Paradise Towers, and the way they greet people. And I think if you look at them at that aspect, then they are kind of interesting characters as they... one of my favourite moments, in fact, I always like it when a character, civilization, has a unique way of a handshake or a unique way of like showing respect, and the Doctor, without saying anything, adapts that. They kind of do this whole yes, I'm a Kang. I'm a blue Kang because I wear a lot of blue. And the Doctor does that as well. I really like as well, he forgets to clap. He puts his hands up and he's like, oh yes, right. I love that little moment. The Kangs seem to take an instant dislike to Mel. I mean, they're not the only ones. This is a story where Mel is just not fun to hang around with. In my opinion, her basically what happens is that after being kind of like introduced to this clan, they get tied up. However, these the caretakers, come into the room, and they get separated, with Mel following the Kangs, whilst the Doctor gets captured by the caretakers. And it's one of those back of the ranch storytellings where the Doctor and Mel have their own subplots and they don't meet up until the very end. Now, this is a good thing because it means that Sylvester McCoy's Doctor, in my opinion, really gets to shine in this story. When he's by himself and he actually takes a lot of plot in this, unlike Mark of the Rani, where it feels a little even. Here it seems a bit more like the Doctor's like the main plot and Mel is like the second plot. And the stuff with the Doctor might not be well written, well executed or anything, but in terms of giving off a very unique performance by Sylvester McCoy, and just the overall fun of the story. I think it actually does kind of work. The Doctor gets introduced to these characters, the caretakers, and they have a very military way of doing things. Each of them carry a rule book, man, they march around and stuff, and they all talk like section 19-2, subsection 4, paragraph 1 of the section 2, kind of like that kind of like dialogue, and they constantly speak of it. The chief of the caretakers is actually designed to look like Arkle Finkel from the Charlie Chaplin film The Great Dictator. So as a huge Charlie Chaplin fan, that was a nice blast for me, and I'm pretty sure that was a nice little blast for Sylvester McCoy, who has stated that Charlie Chaplin was his original inspiration for his Doctor when he was developing the character in Time and the Rani. However, here it seems that aspect of the Doctor is a little bit more relaxed. This story has the Doctor a lot more dialogue heavy than physically attribute. Not to say that this Doctor will always be a physical appearance Doctor. He always does like massive hand gestures. When he describes things, he gets really passionate and his hands go up like this. But here his performance comes much more from his dialogue. And I think, in my opinion, Sylvester McCoy's performance improves so much better than it does in Time and the Rani. To be honest, I don't even know if I even like the Doctor in Time and the Rani. But here, Sylvester McCoy is a lot more enjoyable to watch, in my opinion. He's still much more of the clown. This is before we get the Cardinal Master Plan, in which the Doctor gets developed into a much darker character. Although I guess the seeds are placed here as we get some scenes of Sylvester McCoy's getting really grumpy and manipulating some of the characters around him, even though in this story it's much more for comedic effect. When he gets introduced to the chief caretaker, we get a scene where he goes to the Doctor. It's like, don't you recognize who this person is? He is the great architect, the one who will free us from our terrible situation, the one who will clean up everything from the towers and make everything perfect again. What should we do with him? Kill him? And that's the cliffhanger. And I think that is a great example of what this story is. It's a parody, a comedy, a complete farce, in a really different way to what Doctor Who has previously done before. Previously, when Doctor Who does a very comedic episode, especially during the, what fans have dubbed fans have dubbed the Tom Baker years in Tom Baker's later stories. It feels a lot more like the Doctor, basically he knows everything that's happening and he's like the overpowered one. And he gets put into situations where everyone takes everything seriously and the Doctor kind of sees how silly it all is, how ridiculous it all is. But here, everybody's kind of playing it like it's a cheesy, cartoonish, again, tacky production. I'm always expecting to hear someone to shout out, "It's behind you!" And I always expect there's like kind of a laugh track as well. It kind of has that like sitcom feeling about it. But yeah, However, on Mel's point of view, after she tries running away from the guards, she notices the doctor isn't behind her, and she tries to follow him, only to be introduced and to get greeted into the homes of these two old ladies. Now, these scenes take, for some reason, so much screen time, and they really, really drag. Mel's kind of has this, basically, her subplot is, basically the Doctor and Mel agree right at the start of the story that if anything goes wrong, they will meet up at the swimming pool, which is said to be on one of the top floors. Other characters who've never been onto the top floors explain it as the swimming pool that's at heaven or something like that, or in the sky, something like that. And her entire subplot could have easily been taken out and the story wouldn't have changed, or at least would work better. And it's just, I don't know, it's just something, the production values on this story as well, especially with this, all of a sudden we get introduced to these old ladies which are on the cover there, and this feels extraordinarily, phenomenally pantomime-y, which is a term I've used in Time of the Rani, and I use to describe a majority of, if not every, Seventh Doctor story. Not to say it's anything bad from the writers or the actors. This is much more of a production standpoint. Maybe as well as the actors, but maybe given some bad directing, as they basically feel like they're playing to like the kids at the front of the stage with these massive suggestions. Like when a character is like exhausted, they can't just go. They go, ah, you know, that kind of attitude. These old ladies, though, I will admit, I did kind of enjoy, because I don't think it's ever stated, but it's heavily implied that they're cannibals that are trying to eat Mel. The first time we actually see them, just before Mel goes into their room, they're on their table. They've got a bunch, like really massive bones on the table. And they keep talking to Mel about Mel as if they want to plumb her up, if they wanted to get her bigger. And when Mel comes in, they're constantly like trying to feed her and trying to keep her there. And at one point, one of the ladies says like, we don't want you to leave at all, forever. Yeah, there's nothing really much to talk about. They take a majority of time in the plot, but in terms of the actual plot itself, it does actually has nothing to do with anything, which I find both funny and terribly slow paced as well, as every time we cut to these scenes, nothing plot-wise seemed to happen, and it feels much more like a scene that would be better fitted in a sitcom than a sci-fi drama such as Doctor Who. Mel also gets introduced to a character called Pex. He seems to be some sort of like a really macho, brave man. In fact, I love the way he's introduced, where he just smashes through the door, and he points the gun to the old ladies, and he's like, are these old women bothering you? No. Oh. He points the gun at Mel. Is this woman bothering you two ladies? No. Oh, okay. He puts his gun away, and the girl and the women are like, You fool! You keep coming in and smashing through my door. This is the third time today that you've smashed my door. You're such an irritating bastard. Go away. And he kind of then follows Mel in their subplot to get to the swimming pool. That's their entire... No, they have no contribution to the plot. And I would be okay with that. I wouldn't mind a nice subplot with to kind of distract us from the main plot. But the only problem with that is that this subplot is just follows Mel, and not just Mel, the TV incarnation of Mel. The one I constantly say is my least favourite companion, where she's screaming, she acts all like, I can't wait, I can't describe it very well, but Bonnie Flanford, a great actress. I mean, if you want to prove to me, if you want to be like, right, I hate Mel, and this story proves it, go listen to Big Finish audio dramas with her in it. I've talked about I've talked about 3 stories actually that she's been in so far in this marathon, and she's brilliant in them. Go listen to them. But the TV Mel is a lot more, what's the word? I don't want to say basic. She's kind of like one of those really irritating children presenters where every time you watch them, you constantly are like, right, they're just pandering to the younger demographic. Where it's like, hello there, would you like us to have a little story? Good. Like, kind of has that kind of like irritating aspect about her. I wouldn't say it's much about her character as it is with her performance. If Bonnie Lanford played it in a way that's more attuned to what her audio dramas would be, because Mel is actually, now looking at some of these stories, she's actually I won't say well-written character, but she has a good character to work off here. She's unlike a majority of companions. She likes going in straight first into the action and the adventure. She's very proactive. She's really like, come on, Doctor, we've got to do this and that and this and that. We've got to do something. I can't just sit here and relax for the majority of her plots. But it's the way that she was told, or the way the creative choice of her to play it like the way she did in the TV appearance. I just realised I've baffled on way too much about Mel in this story. I do apologise. Throughout the story, we also get these cleaners, these giant robots, which actually have been taking caretakers down to the basement where they get eaten alive by this creature, which the chief of the caretakers has actually known about these murderings, and he kind of keeps this thing in the basement as a kind of pet. He kind of talks it as if it's like his child, but this thing constantly is like all these caretakers that I've been given are not suitable for what I need. And something really sinister and overwhelming is going on during the attic. The Doctor quickly escapes and goes. The Doctor escaping is a great example of the pantomime aspects of the late 80s era of Doctor Who, and the darker aspects, the Doctor being like this chess master, kind of click together. This is kind of before, but I guess you could say it's kind of foreshadowing what the seventh Doctor will be, as is one of his final requests is can he look and read into the rule book. He's currently being like held his prisoner before he dies, before they execute him, and the Doctor's like, well, that's strange. It says here in the rule book, because these characters have to do everything by the rules. It says here in the rule book that when a guard is being keeping a prisoner for about 15 minutes, they've got to get up, walk 5 paces, close their eyes, put their hands on their head, and wait for 1.5 minutes. To which the guards originally like, what? But then it's in the rule book, so you've got to do it. And so the guards do it, to which the Doctor then slips their car keys, and takes his umbrella and escapes. And it's all basically then he teams up again with the Red Kangs, and everything kind of ensues. Now this is a great example to talk about Nicholas Mallett's directing. You might remember him for directing The Mysterious Planet, the first story in the Trial of the Time Lord storyline. And I said there where he wasn't a particularly strong director. Here, he gets a lot to have control of, I think. Here, I think he gets a lot to work with. There's a lot of, the sets are very colourful and very, I want to say overdone in a way. But some of them comes off as really tacky and really, it feels like it's directed like a music video in a sense, with all of these weird costumes and weird performances and these lots of heavy hand gestures and stuff. It reminds me a lot of an 80s music videos, especially the way some of the characters perform it, especially the Kangs. I think if you're going into this story and going in with the mindset, right, this is like a theatre production kind of aspect, then I think the story actually looks pretty good. But if you're actually looking for a much more mature, more professional looking story, you might be disappointed. It looks very good, but it also looks very amateur. That's a great way of describing it. However, I don't think won't put that against him. The Doctor Who behind the scenes was suffering a lot with budgets, and the head of producer just didn't like him at all, and they had little time to work with anything. So, yeah, there's not a lot to talk about in terms of the directing. There's some really good camera angles, and there's some really good capturing of Sylvester McCoy's performance. But apart from really that, the directing style is kind of it's gonna so the Doctor learns basically that that the great architect was this powerful being who made this building to become this new magnificent resort where people will then come here and live, but they can't, where they can basically come and live. It's like a block of flats. However, he became so power mad, I guess, that he didn't want anybody to move in, and it sounds really stupid. No, like, not I'm saying it out loud, it kind of sounds really ridiculous. God, it sounds like something from a cartoon. It really does sound like something from a cartoon, in which the residents who wanted to live there basically exiled him to the basement trapping him in the towers that he so trapping him in the towers he so loves, so that they can live out in peace. But because of the cleaners and because of the caretakers who basically become power mad, everything's just gone to hell. And we later learn that the creature that the chief caretaker was looking after is actually the sentient remains of the original architect, who then transplants his consciousness into the chief caretaker. Now, the caretaker himself was basically a parody of characters like Hitler and Margaret Thatcher. I think he did a very good job in episodes 1, 2, and 3. This kind of, he just really loves his job, and he does his best to, which is a theme in many of the Seventh Doctor stories, which is a reflection of Margaret Thatcher, of which tried to hide the truth by keeping everybody entertained and happy and because the caretaker has all these rules and regulations to keep everybody like occupied, not telling anybody that that his creature below is killing people, and he keeps that underway, which is a reference to Margaret Thatcher's time, which did something similar to that, I suppose. And as a parody of these political figures, he does a fantastic job. He's really funny. His delivery, especially like the Cliffhangers Part 1, where he talks to kill the Doctor, and there's a great scene in which he interrogates the Doctor, but the Doctor kind of like spins it around, and at the end the Doctor's interrogating him. I really enjoy that scene as a really funny parody, silly kid concept. But I think as soon as the architect controls his body and he becomes this really stiff zombie figure, and he talks like this, and he has like his limbs, and he does this a lot. I think it really suffers, and his performance kind of feels like he's halfway sleeping through the job, which is such a strange turn, because I think he was doing a very good job prior to the transformation. And episode 4 really, to summarise, is the Doctor and Mel meeting up at the swimming pool, where the Doctor convinces the red Kangs, the blue Kangs, the civilians, and the caretakers, who basically realised that their chief has gone mad, to all team up and go against the robots and attack them and stuff. We get some really silly moments where Mel goes into a swimming pool and gets attacked by a yellow robot. I forgot to mention about Pex in Mel's subplot, in which, because it kind of plays up to his character, in which Plex is this, he pretends to be this really macho hero character who's gone in to save the day, and every time Mel tries to get into trouble, he's always like behind her trying to save her. We slowly learn that he's actually a coward. All the middle-aged people went out to fight in this war outside of the Paradise Towers. But Pex actually stayed behind because he was a coward. He didn't want to fight. And he's kind of lived in like regret ever since. So this macho persona he's adopted is him trying to basically right wrongs for himself. I think it's a great idea. I really like the idea of it. This character who's macho because he regrets being a coward. but I don't think it really works too well here. The performances and the time given to this plot line and the way it's developed is really one note, anticlimactic in terms of its the way it's pacing the plot of it, which kind of stops everything else just to set up this this point. Although it does come to a good resolution to the end of the story, in which the Doctor basically comes up with a plan to set this entire room full of dynamite, and he's going to try and shove the architect into the room. But the architect is way too powerful and knocks the Doctor about. And Pex, seeing that is in danger, runs up and pushes the architect, sacrificing himself to save Paradise Towers, as everybody is united in a common goal, and the day is saved. And and the story ends with a funeral scene for poor Pex as the Doctor and Mel leave. And that's Paradise Towers. Now, the way I've described it, it sounds like I absolutely hate this story. And I don't. A lot of people really do hate this story. I know. It's one of the least popular Doctor Who stories, with a lot of people at best thinking it's just kind of meh, to a lot of people thinking it's really bad. And yes, there is a lot of criticisms you can have towards it. The performances, the production, the script, the way the actors have been given to this really pantomime-y plot. But my argument for this story, which allows me to enjoy it so much, is basically just put yourself in the mindset that you've gone to the Grand Theatre and you're going to watch a pantomime. You're going to watch these silly characters, and you're going to have those, "Ooh, what behind you?" kind of moments. I think this is actually a great story to get kids hooked into Doctor Who. If you have any young children, say 8 or younger, who you don't know could get into classic Doctor Who, I actually recommend this story for any young viewers. I think it's very kid-friendly in the way that it's all set up and it's all produced. And it's so bafflingly strange that I think a lot of kids will find some enjoyment in this, especially when it comes to the Kangs and their culture and society. I think that would really appeal to a much younger demographic. However, if you're looking for a much more serious and told story, if you're looking for something with some great plot, some great action, some great characters, or you're looking for a story which sees the Seventh Doctor at his best, which is in terms of him being this mystical chess master, this times champion, then I don't recommend this. This is a story not meant to be taken seriously, which is a kind of a criticism in and of itself. But I say give it. If you have any kids and you want to have a little laugh, show them Paradise Towers. That's what I can say. I'm probably one of the few defenders of Paradise Towers. If you're a fan of Paradise Towers, or maybe you just want to rant about how terrible my opinions are, please let me know down below. I really like hearing opinions about this story. It's a very unique story, and I don't think it deserves to be forgotten. It's got I think there's a lot of passion in this project that I don't think it deserves to be gone to the mists of time. So rewatch it if you haven't watched it in ages, and if you haven't watched it before, go give it a try. And that's Paradise Towers. So join me next time when the Doctor and Mel go to South Wales. I think it's South Wales. And they join a pretty shitty holiday resort. As there's mercenaries in Delta and the Bannermen. And I'll see you next time in the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!